This is Goku-san DBZ, and today I am counting down the top 10 survival horror games of all time. Now, in order to qualify for this list, it must be in a third-person viewpoint. So that means it excludes any first-person shooters or anything like that that has elements of horror. It must be considered a traditional survival horror type game, which has certain design control mechanism that you use. Also includes a lot of times like things like puzzle type things to figure out in order to proceed on in the game. And of course, for the most part, lots of creatures. Traditionally, most survival horror games of course have zombies or other creatures such as. Now, here is top 10 list of 10 of the creepiest good survival horror games ever. Coming in at number 10, released on the PlayStation 2, Siren, which has a very different type of elements than most traditional survival horrors now. Like most, it has zombies, has a couple of different endings you can end up with, and you play with different characters throughout the game, and such as. It's interesting, and at times you can use a special ability and you can look, actually, through the viewpoint of the creatures trying to find and kill you. Now that gives you a certain heads up on things coming your way, and that's a good thing, because it's a pretty difficult game. Coming in at number 9, for the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox, Silent Hill 2. Which, of course, was also brought in HD collection. Silent Hill 2 was the first game to really introduce us to, well, become the figurehead of the Silent Hill franchise, Pyramid Head, which is actually a really awesome character. Of course, immortal, so he can't die no matter what you do. You can slow him down, but that's about it. Coming in at number 8, for the PlayStation 2, Clock Tower 3. Now, each of the 3 Clock Tower games have been produced by a different game maker, a different software developer. The third game, which is by most considered to be the best of the 3, was produced by the creator and founder of Resident Evil, Capcom. Coming in at number 7, Resident Evil, the remake, which is exclusively on the Nintendo GameCube, which is a really good game, I might add. The graphics, up-to-date GameCube, PS2 era graphics, a way better voice and stuff, and oh my goodness, the difficulty is like 2 or 3 times harder than the original version, which was pretty hard in its own right. But they really made the remake hard to beat, and awesome in the creepiness factor as well. So I give them points. That's one, probably the best video game remakes ever. Coming in at number 6, Resident Evil Code Veronica / Veronica X, which, of course, the original Code Veronica was released on the Sega Dreamcast, and then known as Veronica X, why they add the X I don't know, was released on the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo GameCube, which, by the way, is a really good survival horror game. It is perhaps considered to be, by most, the last true Resident Evil game in the survival horror aspect, because 4 started the trend of going more third-person action-style games. It really left its survival horror roots completely after Veronica. Basically, it was the last true Resident Evil game in the franchise. Coming in at number 5, released only to my knowledge on the PC, Amnesia, The Dark Descent, which, by the way, is a very creepy game, I might add. Check it out if you've never heard of it. Coming in at number 4, Fatal Frame, the first of the 3 games in the series. A Fatal Frame is different than most survival horror games. I mean, the creepiness factor is perhaps one of the creepiest games ever made that I've ever seen. Definitely an awesome game, released on the PS2 and original Xbox. basically, you don't have guns or weapons like most survival horror games. Your only weapon is a camera against the spirits of the dead, and through your camera is the only way you can see the spirits. And the only way to defeat them is to take a picture and capture their soul in the camera. That's the only way to survive in Fatal Frame. Coming in at number 3 on the PS2 and original Xbox, The Suffering. If you've never played it, check it out. The Suffering is one creepy-ass game. That's all I'm going to say about that. Coming in at number 2, the original Silent Hill, exclusively on the PlayStation 1 or PSX. This was the first, I think, the creepiest game, at least personally, to me ever. This game, the first time I ever played this game back in the 90s, the game freaking gave me nightmares for a week after I played it. But it is an incredible game. I mean, the difficulty is really impressive, and you have to rely more on like crowbars and stuff, beating the creatures and stuff, because you have a lot less ammunition and guns to use in Silent Hill than, say, Resident Evil. Now, 2 honorable mentions before we go to number 1. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. And Silent Hill Origins, which is a prequel to the original Silent Hill, released exclusive to Sony, PS2 and PSP. Coming in at number 1 by a lot of Resident Evil and survival horror fans in general, consider this to be one of the greatest survival horror games ever created. By Capcom, released on the Nintendo GameCube, the Sega Dreamcast, the PlayStation 1, and the Nintendo 64. Resident Evil 2. Which is an amazing game, I might add. And there's a couple of different endings in, of course, the game. And you have 2 ways to play the game. First, you have 2 discs. One is Claire and one is Leon. You can play like storyline A, or, well, A1 or storyline B1. So, the storyline plays different. If you play the first time with, say, Leon, and the second time with Claire, it's a little different storyline. Then, next time you play the game, if you play first with Claire, it goes more the storyline that you have with Leon the first time you played it. And then when you play with Leon the second time after beating the game, first time with Claire, it plays more like the game would if you were playing Claire in 2. So it kind of reverses around the game a little bit. It's kind of a refreshing, I think, idea, to be completely honest. And I haven't seen that really in another survival horror game since, which is a shame. But this is Goku-san, DBZ as always. I hope everyone out there has a good rest of the summer. And as always, peace out. Hopefully someday we do, and I'll be working on a couple more top 10s and a couple more of retro reviews in the near future. So stay tuned. One of the next top 10s I'll be working on is the top 10 games of Capcom, and also the top 10 games of Square Enix. And by a couple of different requests, eventually I will try to do a top 10 Final Fantasy list as well, given there's about 27, 28 games in the franchise. But anyways, hope you all have a good rest of the 2014.